Bright Cutie. Every student matters.
Hi students, welcome to the session. In this session, we are going to talk about transportation of substances in plants. Up till now, we have talked about the transport that occurs in the animals, and that includes transportation of food material and oxygen to the various parts of the body. When we are talking about the transportation in plants, this is also quite similar. That means that the substances that are transported are usually the substances that are required by the plant for performing various functions. Now, if we think about it, the water and minerals are taken up by the plant with the help of roots, right? And this water and mineral is required by the plant for various purposes. One of the very important purpose is photosynthesis. That is, the water is required by the leaves to perform the photosynthesis and make food. Similarly, minerals like nitrogen and phosphorus etc. are utilized by the plants to make other substances as well. So, when the roots are absorbing the water and mineral, how do they reach the leaves, right? So, this is one of the transportation that takes place, that the water and mineral that has been absorbed by the roots from the soil are transported to the leaves, where the leaves perform photosynthesis, right? And in the photosynthesis, what it does is that it produces food material with the help of water and the carbon dioxide and in the presence of sunlight, right? So, the leaves are performing photosynthesis and are producing food. Now, in the previous sessions, we studied that food, that is basically the carbohydrate that is made by the plants, are utilized by animals to release energy. In the same way, this carbohydrate is utilized by the plants to release energy. How? That the carbohydrate is broken into glucose, and this glucose further releases the energy that is required for performing different activities. Now, each cell of the plant also requires the energy to perform various functions that are necessary to sustain life. What happens is that the food that we are talking about has to reach all the parts of the plants, including the root. So, now the second type of transportation that is needed is from the leaves to all the parts of the plants, right? All the parts. And again, like I said, the importance of this movement is because of the energy that is required by the cell to perform various activities. So, when the transportation we are talking about is taking place, it happens in two directions, that is from root to leaves. So, suppose this is the plant that we are talking about. So, and this is the leaf where the food is being made. So, one transportation is from the roots, right, to the leaf, and the other transportation is from the leaf to the roots and different parts of the plant. So, whenever, suppose if the plant is branched, right, suppose this is a branch, so the food from the leaves goes into the branch as well. So, in this way, we see that the movement is in two directions. One is from downward to upward, that is specifically towards the leaf, whereas when we are talking about the movement of food from the leaf to the different parts of the plant, the direction is changed, right? So, in this way, we see how the transportation occurs. Now, this I have explained that from where to where the transportation is needed and what are the materials that are transported. Now, let's understand how does this transport takes place. First of all, let's understand the transport of water and minerals. For this transport, we know that it starts from the roots. What happens exactly is that this is a root here which absorbs water from its surroundings. So, water and minerals are absorbed from the surrounding, and as you can see, if you follow these blue arrows, you will be able to see that how this water is transported, right? This water is transported through the root and goes into the vessels. So, basically, the plant contains vessels which help in the transportation of materials. These vessels are actually the pipe-like structures, right, that are present pipe-like structure that are present in the plants. Right now, plant absorb the water and minerals through the root, and root hairs are very like we have already discussed that these are very thin, and that's the reason why the water is easily able to move into the root hair, and then it goes upwards towards the leaves. So what is the use of root hair? Now again, if you remember that we have talked about how this is the root, and there are small microscopic or even they are very delicate root hairs. Exactly what happens is that these root hairs increase the surface area, right? What they do is they increase the surface area of the of the root, so as to more and more water and mineral can be absorbed. That's the reason why they are quite thin. So there is this root, the surface area of the root, and then there is the smaller root hairs, which again it helps in the increase of the surface area, right? Now what happens is, once the root hair is able to absorb the water and mineral which it is close contact with, it starts moving upwards through the vessels, specifically the xylem vessels. So these are the vascular cells that are present in the plant that you will study in detail in your later classes. As of now, for you to remember, you should know that the root hair picks up, absorbs the water that is present in the surrounding, and also the minerals that are dissolved in the water. And then through the root hair and root, this is the part of the stem where you will find the xylem vessels. These xylem vessels are responsible for the water and transport of the water and minerals, right? So from the root, these water and minerals reaches the leaves with the help of xylem, vessels. Now, the question here arises that how exactly does the water moves upwards, right? So, if you remember that roots are underground, whereas leaves are on the upper side of the water. So, the question arises that how water moves from root to the leaves, and also what kind of transport system is present in the plants which allow this kind of movement. So, to answer this question, let's understand the this system, that is the vascular system, a little better. Now before that, let's answer the Bujo's question. Bujo thinks that plants may have pipes to transport water to entire plant like we have in our homes for the supply of water. To an extent, Bujo is quite right, because the plants contain pipe-like structures called as the vessels, right? Pipe-like structures that are called as the vessels. These are the part of vascular tissues, right? These vascular tissues are spread throughout the body of the plant, and they are helping in the movement of water and minerals and food. These are two types. One is the xylem and other is the phloem, right? So in xylem we see that the transport of water and minerals takes place, whereas through the phloem the food material is transported. So when we were talking about the movement of or transport of water and minerals in the plant that occurs between the root and leaves, we saw that the xylem vessels were the ones which were causing the movement of water and minerals. And when we talk about the transportation or translocation of food material, we will see that phloem will play an important role there. Now, let's talk about that how exactly does this process takes place, that how exactly does the transport of water and mineral take place. Now, when we were talking about the vascular tissues, we said that xylem was the tissue which helped in the transport of water and mineral. This is a specialized tissue. Now, I have been using the term tissue for a long time. So, before we move on, let me explain what exactly is a tissue. So, tissue is a group of similar cell similar cells, and these similar cells are similar in structure as well as functions. Right, so these are the specialized cells. When we were talking about the vascular tissues, these are the specialized cells, and these are basically two types, xylem and phloem. And xylem further has different types that you will study in your higher classes. As of now, understand that xylem is the tissue which is responsible for the movement of water and minerals from the root towards the leaves. So the xylem forms a network of pipe-like structures. It forms a network which allows the movement of water and minerals from one part to the other, right? So this network is a continuous channel. Network is actually a continuous channel from the root through the stem to the leaf, right? So over here, if you see in this diagram also, this blue arrow which you are able to see indicates the movement of water. So as you can see over here, the water is being absorbed by the root and root hairs through the soil, and it is moving upwards with the help of this network of xylem tissues. And then what is happening, that this movement is taking place in such a way that the water is reaching the leaves, right? And over here, the water is being utilized by the plant. So you can see that how it is reaching each and every leaf in the plant, right? Now, once the food has been made, right? Once the food is made in the plant, the next thing which happens is the transport of food, and that takes place with the help of the phloem, right? So before we understand the phloem, the transport of food through the phloem, let's perform an activity. And before that, let's answer one question which Paheli has. She says her mother puts ladyfinger and other vegetables in water if they are somewhat dry. She wants to know how the water enters into them. So this is quite a interesting question, and about which you are going to study in detail. For now, it's important for you to understand that all of these vegetables have the skin that is permeable to water. So when the vegetable is dry, what happens is the amount of water decreases in that vegetable. So when you are putting that vegetable in the bowl of water, so what happens, that suppose this is the vegetable, right? This is the vegetable, and you've put it inside the water, right? Now over here the amount of water is high, whereas in the vegetable the amount of water is quite low. Now when you have put these vegetables in water, the water tends to enter from the high concentration towards the lower concentration. So it moves from outer environment and into the vegetables, right? And this is the movement that you're going to study about in detail. For now, just understand that the water moves from the higher concentration towards the lower concentration, and that's the reason why that these vegetables, they need to be kept in water before cooking if they are dry, right? Now, in this activity, students, just to understand how the working is taking place or how the water is being absorbed, we are going to perform a simple activity. What we are going to do is we are going to take a green herb, right? And we are going to take a green plant and we are going to cut it from the stem. Remember, we don't want roots in it. We just want a small green stem, and we will put it in water which is colored with either red, or you can also put blue ink in it. Once you've put it, you have to keep it, say, for few hours. You keep it maybe overnight also, and in the next morning you will observe that there are some red patches on the leaves, right? These red patches indicates that the red ink has moved up through the stem and it has reached the leaf. If you cut a section, if you cut a horizontal section, you will see this kind of, this red color in the vessels. These are the vessels indicating the movement, and these are basically what? These are the xylem vessels, right? And this is what you can see is the enlarged view of the end of the stem, right? So you can look at it, you can check it out even in under the microscope, or you can use a magnifying glass. You will be able to see how the movement of water took place from the colored bowl towards the leaves, right? Bujo wants to know why plants absorb a large amount of water from the soil, then give it off by transpiration. Now, when we are talking about the absorption of large amount of water, the reason for that is that transpiration is a very, very important process. First of all, if we talk about the environment, the transpiration maintains the water cycle. If we talk about the plants itself, so there are certain plants which are really tall. There are trees which grows up to 150 meters tall, right? Some of the plants are quite small, like herbs. They do not require transpiration for the movement of water from the roots to your leaves. But the trees which have huge heights, especially like trees which have say 150-meter height, trees like mango, neem, all of these long and tall trees, they require a transpirational pull, right? That is the reason why a lot of water is absorbed by the plant, and then it is given off by transpiration. So let's understand this process. Transpiration, first of all, is the process of vaporization or evaporation of water, through leaves, right? And even through leaves, we know that the transpiration occurs through stomata, right? So whenever there is excess water, what happens is this stomata opens up and transpiration takes place. This creates a transpirational pull, right? This creates a transpirational pull which causes the upward movement of water, right? This causes the upward movement of water from roots, right? So from the roots, the upward movement takes place towards the leaf, because from the leaf only the evaporation is taking place. So this helps in giving the transpirational pull, and also and that's how it assists in the upward movement of the water. So if we talk about transpiration, it helps the plant in two ways. First of all, it provides the cooling effect in the plant. If you remember, we were talking about the sweating in human beings during the summer. When the sweat evaporated, we had a cooling sensation. Similar is the case with the plants also, that when the water evaporates, it gives the plant a cooling sensation. Apart from that, it creates the suction pull so that the water can be pulled upward in tall trees, right? So in this way, we see how the transpiration is really important, and this is the reason why large quantities of water is sucked up by the plants and then eventually are lost during the transpiration.
To demonstrate transpiration. Materials required: conical flask with water, oil, dropper, cotton, plant. Method: take water in 2 conical flasks. Place a small plant in one of the flasks. Pour a layer of oil on the top to prevent loss of water by evaporation. Close the mouth of 2 of the flasks with cotton wool. Mark the level of water. Observe the water level after 2 hours. You observe that the water level comes down in the flask with the plant. This is because the water is lost by transpiration.
So in this way, students, we saw that how these two vessels, that is the xylem and phloem, were responsible for the movement of water and minerals from the roots towards the leaf, and from the leaf the food is moved to different parts of the body of the plant through phloem, right? Always remember, these two vessels are really important and they form a network-like structure. They are connected to one another and form a continuous network. Now, once we've understood this, let's move on and answer some questions.